5,000 people, no sunlight. The only thing standing between you and total psychological collapse is a barbershop, a snack bar, and a store you never knew existed. How do you stay combat ready inside a nuclear-powered steel fortress 1,000 miles from the nearest shore with nothing but these crazy stores keeping your mind from breaking? Let's go 6 decks below the flight deck and find out exactly what's running down there. 17,000 meals served every single day. 250 haircuts completed before sunset. A zip code, a real official United States zip code, assigned to a vessel cutting through open ocean at 30 knots. And $65,000 spent on food alone every single day without exception. Now here's the question nobody asks. What kind of machine does all of that while simultaneously carrying 90 combat aircraft launching strike missions around the clock and projecting American military dominance across an entire hemisphere? The answer is USS Gerald R. Ford, CVN-78, the most expensive warship ever constructed in human history at $13.3 billion. Its electromagnetic aircraft launch system, the EALS, hurls a 44,000-pound F/A 18E Super Hornet from 0 to 165 miles per hour in under 3 seconds. Its 2 A-1B nuclear reactors generate over 600 megawatts of thermal energy. Its AN/SPY-3 multifunction radar tracks targets simultaneously across hundreds of miles. By every conventional measure, this machine is the apex predator of modern naval warfare. But here's what the defense briefings never tell you. Strip away everything above the flight deck. Forget the aircraft, forget the radar, go 6 decks down into the spaces where 5,000 men and women eat, sleep, argue, grieve, and somehow hold themselves together for up to 270 consecutive days without once touching land. That is where the real engine of American naval power lives. Not in the reactors, not in the weapons, in the human beings who operate them, and in the extraordinary systems built to keep those human beings functional. Imagine being 19 years old, 3 weeks out of boot camp, stepping through a hatch into the interior of a Nimitz-class carrier for the first time. Within 20 minutes, you are completely lost inside a steel labyrinth of 2,500 compartments and over 900 miles of internal wiring. The air smells of jet fuel, industrial solvent, and recycled oxygen. There are no windows. For the next 72 hours, you will not see natural daylight. Not once. Your personal living space is a berthing rack 75 inches long, 27 inches wide, 18 inches of clearance above your face, shared in a compartment with 59 other sailors. That is your home for 9 months. Multiply that experience across 5,000 individuals. Different ages, different backgrounds, different psychological thresholds. All of them confined inside 1,092 feet of moving steel. A hull longer than the Empire State Building is tall on seas that can reach 30-foot swells. The question military planners have wrestled with for a century is not how to arm these people. It's how to keep them from breaking. Because a demoralized crew doesn't just underperform, it becomes a liability. And a liability aboard a nuclear-powered warship carrying live ordnance is a category of risk no admiral wants to calculate. The United States Navy solved that problem. And the solution is not classified. It's not a pharmaceutical program or a psychological intervention protocol. It's hiding in barber chairs, snack bars, retail aisles, postal counters, and mess decks that most Americans will never see. It is in the most literal sense, civilization compressed, engineered, and installed inside a weapons platform to make human beings combat ready for 9 months straight. Here's the paradox that should stop you cold. USS Gerald R. Ford cost $13.3 billion. Its weapons elevators move 24,000 pounds of live ordnance per minute. Its strike aircraft can reach targets 500 miles away in under an hour, and yet remove the cooks, the barbers, the postal clerks, and the store managers, the sailors, earning $2,000 a month doing jobs that sound completely ordinary. And that $13.3 billion machine cannot complete a single combat deployment. That is not a metaphor. That is United States Navy doctrine. If that truth just reframed everything you thought you knew about military power, hit subscribe right now. Because what's waiting below that flight deck is far more extraordinary than anything flying above it. So what does the inside of a floating city actually look like? And how does the Navy turn 2,500 steel compartments into something a human being can call home? The flight deck of USS Abraham Lincoln, C5N72 covers 4.5 acres of usable surface. That is 3.5 American football fields placed end to end. The island structure rises 20 stories above the waterline. Below the waterline, the hull draws 37 feet of depth. From keel to masthead, 244 feet of vertical steel, moving as a single object through open ocean. Inside that object, 2,500 compartments, over 900 miles of internal wiring, and approximately 30,000 distinct mechanical and electrical systems that must function simultaneously and without failure. The two A-1B nuclear reactors aboard four class carriers generate enough electricity to power a land-based city of 100,000 people. Every single day, the ship's distillation plants convert raw seawater into 400,000 gallons of fresh drinking water, enough to sustain the entire crew through drinking, cooking, bathing, laundry, and firefighting with margin to spare. Now consider the human being dropped into the center of this machine for the first time. A new sailor, reporting aboard USS Harry S. Truman CBN 75, typically requires 2 full weeks of daily navigation before moving between berthing duty station and mess decks without losing their way. There are no windows, no street signs, no GPS signal that registers below the main deck. Sailors develop private landmark systems, a distinctive color-coded pipe junction, a stenciled frame number on a bulkhead, anything to anchor themselves inside a structure that looks identical in every direction. One former aviation boatswain's mate described his first 4 days below decks. He genuinely could not determine whether it was day or night without checking his watch. The ship operates on its own internal rhythm indifferent to sunrise and sunset. This is the environment the Navy must transform into something a human being can occupy for 270 consecutive days without psychological collapse. The first tool in that transformation is a retail store. The ship's store aboard a carrier operates under the Navy Exchange Service Command, NEXCOM, a $2.4 billion organization managing tax-free retail across every U.S. Navy installation worldwide. Prices run 20 to 30% below comparable civilian retail, with zero state or federal sales tax applied. The inventory covers genuine daily necessities, uniform components, personal hygiene products, over-the-counter medications, phone chargers, athletic gear books, and ship-specific merchandise. The unit patches challenge coins and embroidered caps that accumulate meaning across a deployment. Inventory is actively managed by the ship's store officer, typically an ensign or lieutenant junior grade, who tracks consumption data and adjusts resupply orders accordingly. This is professional retail logistics operating at sea, and it functions with the discipline of any civilian supply chain operation. Every carrier also operates what sailors call a G-Dunk, a snack bar and soda fountain that is far more than it appears. The word traces directly to a 1920s newspaper comic strip called Harold Teen, drawn by Carl Ed, in which the main character orders a Gadunk sundae at a soda fountain. The slang embedded itself in American youth culture. When Secretary of the Navy Josephus Daniels banned all alcohol from U.S. naval vessels in 1914, ship designers installed soda fountains as a replacement social space. Sailors brought the word aboard with them. Items range from 25 cents for a cold drink to a few dollars for hot food, affordable for every pay grade. Critically, profits from G-Dunk sales flow directly into each ship's morale, welfare, and recreation fund. The MWR financing movie nights, athletic equipment, and crew events. Sailors buy snacks. Snacks fund morale programs. Morale programs sustain operational effectiveness. It is a self-financing loop of institutional human care, engineered deliberately. Aboard USS Abraham Lincoln, CVN 72. The barbershop processes an average of 250 haircuts every single day. The barbers hold the official Navy enlisted rating of ship's serviceman, abbreviated SSH, a full military occupational specialty, not a collateral duty. But ask any carrier veteran what the barber chair actually meant across 9 months at sea, and the answer is consistent. It was not about the haircut. The barber chair was one of the only places aboard where rank quietly dissolved, where an E3 seaman and a chief petty officer could sit in adjacent chairs and talk like human beings. The night before a major strike launch, barbershops across the ship run past their normal hours. not because regulations require it. Because that 15-minute ritual of normalcy is how young men and women quiet everything in their heads before stepping into something that they cannot take back. If Ban had to live 9 months aboard this ship, what's the first thing you'd buy at the ship's store? But stores and barber chairs are only the beginning. Because feeding 5,000 people 3 times a day, getting a letter from home delivered to the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and keeping every uniform clean while the ship rolls through 20-foot swells requires a logistics operation that makes most corporations look amateur. Nimitz-class carriers operate 5 separate galleys distributed across the ship. Ford-class carriers consolidated that into 2 centralized galleys, larger, more efficient, and capable of higher throughput with fewer personnel. Either way, the output is identical. Over 17,000 individual meals served every single day across breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a late-night meal called mid-rats, midnight rations for sailors coming off the night watch. Running those operations are 114 culinary specialists working in rotating shifts that begin at 400 and don't fully shut down until past midnight. These are not cafeteria workers. They are trained military personnel holding an official Navy enlisted rating, managing industrial kitchens under conditions that would ground any civilian food service operation within hours. The daily food volume aboard a carrier is staggering by any measure. On a single operational day, culinary teams prepare approximately 1,600 pounds of chicken, 160 gallons of milk, 350 pounds of fresh lettuce, and 30 cases of breakfast cereal, before accounting for the dozens of additional menu items running simultaneously across multiple serving lines. The menu itself rotates on a 45-day cycle, meaning no meal is repeated within a 6-week period. That discipline exists for a specific reason: food fatigue. When people eat the same rotation too quickly, appetite drops, caloric intake falls, and physical performance degrades. The 45-day cycle is not a hospitality courtesy. It is a performance maintenance protocol. Daily food expenditure across the ship runs between $45,000 and $65,000, translating to a monthly food budget of up to $1.8 million for a single vessel. Ask any chief culinary specialist who has deployed aboard a carrier what the hardest day of the year looks like, and the answer is always the same: Thanksgiving. Not because of the workload, though. Feeding 5,000 people a full traditional holiday meal in a single operational day is an extraordinary logistical achievement because of what it means. The team starts prepping 48 hours in advance. Whole turkeys, fresh pies, mashed potatoes, stuffing, cranberry sauce, a complete holiday spread executed flawlessly on a ship moving through the Arabian Gulf or the South China Sea. When the mess decks open, sailors who haven't spoken to their families in weeks sit down to a meal that feels for exactly 1 hour like home. More than a few of them don't make it through the meal without losing composure. Neither do some of the cooks watching from behind the serving line. Every U.S. aircraft carrier operates as its own official post office, assigned a Fleet Post Office Code, FPOAE, for Atlantic and Mediterranean deployments, FPOAP for Pacific operations. These are real zip codes recognized by the United States Postal Service that travel with the ship wherever it goes. Mail addressed to a sailor aboard USS Carl Vinson, CVN-70 FPOAP, arrives through a system that crosses continents, transfers between military logistics, hubs, and ultimately reaches the ship via C-2A Greyhound aircraft, operating under the Carrier Onboard Delivery Mission known as COD. The C-2A Greyhound is a twin turboprop transport aircraft with a payload capacity of 10,000 pounds. It lands on a moving flight deck, a runway that is 1,092 feet long and traveling at up to 30 knots, using an arrested landing wire identical to those used by combat jets. It does this to deliver letters, packages, photographs, drawings made by children with colored pencils. A petty officer, second class, working the postal sorting room aboard USS Ronald Reagan CVN-76 during a Western Pacific deployment, described receiving a padded envelope addressed in crayon. Inside was a folded piece of notebook paper covered in a pencil drawing, 2 stick figures, one tall and one small, standing next to something that was clearly meant to be a ship. Underneath, in a 6-year-old's handwriting, "Come home, Daddy." He set it aside, finished his shift, sorted 340 more pieces of mail that day, and then sat down in the corridor outside the postal room and did not move for 20 minutes. Nobody asked him what was wrong. They already knew. No military recruitment brochure has ever led with laundry. No carrier documentary has ever centered its narrative on the industrial washing machines, running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, across multiple laundry facilities distributed throughout the ship. And yet 5,000 people generating dirty uniforms, workout clothes, bedding, and towels every single day produces a volume of soiled fabric that, if left unmanaged for 48 hours, would cascade into a hygiene and operational readiness crisis. Carrier laundry systems process multiple tons of fabric, daily sorted by unit, and return to the correct berthing compartment on a rotating schedule. Ask any carrier veteran what they genuinely missed most after leaving the Navy. A surprising number of them pause and then mention the laundry service. Not because it was luxurious, because it was one less thing they had to carry. Here's the image that captures everything: a C-2A Greyhound tail number descending through final approach crosses the stern of USS Gerald R. Ford at 110 knots. The arresting wire catches. The aircraft shudders to a stop in under 2 seconds. The cargo door opens, and what comes out is not ammunition, not spare parts, not classified equipment. It's gray canvas mailbags, heavy with letters from 5,000 different families moving toward 5,000 different sailors who have been at sea for 60 days and counting. That aircraft made that landing on a moving deck in crosswind conditions, with a flight crew that trained for years to execute it to deliver paper. Think about that for a moment. Now tell us in the comments what matters more to combat morale, a hot meal or a letter from home. But food, mail, and clean uniforms only address the body and the heart. What happens when someone gets sick, or when the darkness of a 9-month deployment starts winning against the human mind? Large deck carriers are the only surface combatants in the U.S. Navy that operate full medical departments capable of what military medicine classifies as Level 2 trauma care. That designation means the ship can perform emergency surgery, manage multiple simultaneous casualties, and stabilize patients for extended periods without evacuation to a shore-based facility. The surgical suite aboard a Nimitz or Ford-class carrier contains a fully equipped operating room, a recovery ward, an intensive care bay, a pharmacy stocked with over 500 individual medications, and a laboratory capable of performing blood work and diagnostic testing. The dental department runs equally comprehensive operations: routine cleanings, fillings, extractions, and oral surgery, because dental emergencies at sea left untreated become operational liabilities within days. The medical staff includes Navy physicians, dentists, independent duty corpsmen, and optometrists, Yachtsimsarsts. Roughly 60 medical personnel serve aboard a typical carrier strike group's flagship, available around the clock. A Navy general medical officer recounted performing an emergency appendectomy aboard USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, CVN-69, during a North Atlantic transit through sea state. 4 conditions meaning wave heights between 8 and 13 feet. The operating table was bolted to the deck. The surgical team was braced against the table. The patient was strapped down. The procedure took 47 minutes. The patient returned to limited duty in 6 days. That surgery happened because the carrier had the equipment, the personnel, and the training to execute it. Without that capability, the sailor would have required a medical evacuation by helicopter, a mission that in Sea State 4, at night over 300 miles from the nearest airfield, carries its own serious risk profile. The hospital didn't save that sailor despite being on a warship. It saved him because of it. Beyond medical care, every carrier operates a morale, welfare, and recreation program. MWR funded through a combination of the G-Dunk profits mentioned earlier and direct Navy budget allocation. The physical fitness facilities run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because watch schedules mean different sailors are off duty at every hour of the day and night. The equipment is professional grade: free weights, cable machines, cardio equipment, and dedicated spaces for organized fitness programs. Digital libraries provide access to thousands of books, films, and educational resources. And on certain evenings in certain weather conditions, the carrier's crew does something that sounds almost impossible, given everything else happening aboard that ship. They move folding chairs to a cleared section of the flight deck, set up a projection screen, and watch a movie under open sky above the Pacific Ocean. Sailors who have experienced it describe it as the single most surreal and peaceful moment of an entire deployment. 500 people sitting quietly in the dark, 1,000 miles from the nearest continent, looking up at a sky with no light pollution and more stars than most of them have ever seen. Now here is the twist. Everything described in this video, the stores, the G-Dunk, the barbers, the galleys, the postal system, the laundry, the hospital, the gym, the movie nights, none of it exists because the United States Navy is sentimental. Research conducted through the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California, has documented a direct measurable correlation between MWR program investment and two specific operational metrics: re-enlistment rates and mission readiness scores. Sailors who report higher satisfaction with quality of life programs aboard ship are statistically more likely to re-enlist, and units with higher re-enlistment rates demonstrate measurably superior combat effectiveness scores across readiness evaluations. This infrastructure is not welfare, it is force multiplication. Every dollar spent on a barber chair, a snack bar, or a Thanksgiving turkey is a calculated investment in the combat capability of the ship. The Navy does not do this because it is kind, it does it because it works. USS Gerald R. Ford, CVN-78, carries 90 aircraft, 2 nuclear reactors, 11 weapons elevators moving 24,000 pounds of ordnance per minute, and enough striking power to reshape a regional conflict within 72 hours of arrival. None of that moves tomorrow morning if 114 culinary specialists don't wake up at 0400, tee on their aprons, and start breakfast for 5,000 people. The most sophisticated weapons platform in human history depends at its foundation on a 22-year-old culinary specialist third class folding clean uniforms at midnight so that the pilot climbing into an FA-18F Super Hornet 6 hours later is rested, fed, dressed, and mentally ready to execute. That sailor has no call sign, no combat patch, nobody is making a documentary about him. But remove him from the equation, and the $13.3 billion machine behind him goes nowhere. The United States didn't just build the world's most powerful warship. It built the world's most sophisticated argument that human beings perform at their peak when they are treated like human beings even in the middle of a war. If this video changed the way you see military power described right now, we go deeper every week into the stories that don't make the front page, the ones that actually explain why America's Navy is what it is. Because the greatest weapon the United States ever put to sea isn't made of steel. It's made of the 5,000 people inside it, and the extraordinary system built to make sure every single one of them shows up ready.